Youssef is a master perfumer from a long line of artisans, renowned for creating exquisite and intoxicating scents. However, his life is shattered when his wife is found murdered, and he becomes the prime suspect. Driven by grief and a burning desire to clear his name, Youssef delves into the city's underbelly, using his keen sense of smell to follow the trail of the real killer. The air in Youssef's perfumery, usually a symphony of delicate aromas, was thick with the sterile scent of disinfectant. Police tape crisscrossed the entrance, a stark contrast to the intricate mosaics and hand-carved shelves that lined the walls. Youssef stood outside, his heart a leaden weight in his chest, the familiar scents of jasmine, rose, and sandalwood now tainted with the metallic tang of blood. Youssef's world had always been one of scent. He was a master perfumer, a craft passed down through generations of his family. His nose was his most valuable tool, capable of discerning the subtlest nuances in fragrance, of blending individual notes into harmonious compositions that evoked memories, emotions, and desires. Fatima had understood this about him, had cherished his unique gift. She had been his muse, the inspiration behind his most celebrated creations. Their life together had been a fragrant tapestry woven with love and shared passion. Fatima, with her vibrant spirit and infectious laughter, had brought light and joy into his often solitary world. She had understood the language of scent as deeply as he did, appreciating the artistry and the emotional power behind each carefully crafted perfume. Now, that tapestry was torn, leaving a gaping hole in his life. The police investigation had been swift and brutal. Because he was the husband, he was the primary suspect. The questions were relentless, the accusations veiled but present. They looked at him with suspicion, their eyes cold and assessing. The scent of their distrust clung to him, a foul odor he couldn't wash away. He remembered the morning of Fatima's death. He had woken to find her side of the bed empty. He'd assumed she was already in the small garden behind the perfumery, tending to her beloved roses. But when he went to find her, he discovered the back door slightly ajar and a chilling draft swirling through the usually warm air. He called her name, his voice catching in his throat. There was no reply. He found her in the small storage room at the back of the perfumery, a space usually filled with sacks of dried flowers and bottles of essential oils. Now, it was a scene of horror. Fatima lay on the cold stone floor, a dark crimson stain spreading across her white dress. The scent of death, sharp and acrid, overpowered the delicate aromas that usually permeated the room. The police had focused on the fact that the storage room door had been locked from the inside. They suggested a possible robbery gone wrong, but nothing appeared to be missing. Youssef knew in his heart that this wasn't random. This was personal. Someone had deliberately targeted Fatima. The lead investigator, a stern-faced man named Inspector Kamal, had questioned Youssef for hours. He asked about their relationship, about any arguments, about any enemies. Youssef answered truthfully, his voice hoarse with grief. He and Fatima had been deeply in love. They rarely argued. He couldn't imagine anyone who would want to harm her. But the police weren't convinced. The locked room, the lack of forced entry, it all pointed to someone close to Fatima, someone with access to the perfumery. And that someone was him. After the initial interrogation, Youssef was released, but he was far from free. He was trapped in a prison of grief and suspicion, the scent of accusation clinging to him like a shroud. He knew he had to clear his name. He had to find Fatima's killer. He owed it to her memory, to the love they shared. He returned to the perfumery, the police tape a cruel reminder of his loss. He carefully stepped over it, entering the familiar space that now felt so alien. The air was heavy with the lingering scent of Fatima's blood, a scent he would never forget. He walked to the storage room, the scene of the tragedy. The police had removed the body, but the faint stain on the floor remained, a stark reminder of the violence that had taken place. He knelt beside it, His eyes closed, trying to reconstruct the events of that fateful morning. He focused on the scents in the room. The familiar aromas of dried lavender and sandalwood were still present, but there was something else, something subtle, almost imperceptible. A faint, musky scent, unfamiliar and unsettling. He inhaled deeply, trying to isolate it, to identify it. It was a scent he had never encountered before in his perfumery. He stood up, his mind racing. Could this scent be a clue? Could it lead him to Fatima's killer? He knew he had to follow this trail, however faint it might be. He would use his unique gift, his heightened sense of smell, to unravel the mystery of Fatima's death. He began his own investigation, revisiting the places Fatima had frequented, talking to her friends and acquaintances. He paid close attention to the scents that surrounded him, searching for that elusive, musky note. His quest took him into the city's underbelly, a world of hidden desires and dark secrets. He encountered people he would never have met in his normal life. Shady merchants, clandestine lovers, and individuals with long-held grudges. He learned about Fatima's secret life, a side of her he never knew existed. The scent trail led him to a clandestine meeting place, a dimly lit cafe frequented by individuals involved in illicit affairs. He overheard whispers of a secret relationship, a forbidden love. Could Fatima have been involved with someone else? The thought pierced him like a knife. He continued his search, driven by a desperate hope to find the truth. The scent of loss was still heavy upon him, but beneath it, a new scent was emerging, the scent of determination. He would not rest until he had uncovered the truth, until he had brought Fatima's killer to justice. Yusef's investigation led him deeper into the labyrinthine alleys and hidden corners of the city. The faint, musky scent he had detected in the storage room became his compass, guiding him through a world he had never known existed. He found himself frequenting dimly lit cafes, smoky backrooms, and clandestine meeting places, places where secrets whispered in hushed tones and desires were traded in the shadows. The cafe he had discovered, the one frequented by those involved in illicit affairs, became a regular haunt. He would sit in a secluded corner, nursing a cup of strong, bitter coffee, his senses heightened, listening to the fragments of conversations that drifted around him. He paid close attention to the scents that lingered in the air, the sweet perfume of a woman's skin, the pungent aroma of cheap tobacco, the faint, lingering trace of that unsettling musk. One evening, while observing a couple engaged in a hushed conversation, he caught a whiff of the familiar musk, stronger than he had smelled it before. It emanated from the man, a well-dressed individual with a slicked-back hairstyle and a predatory air. Yusef felt a jolt of recognition, a sense that he was finally on the right track. He discreetly followed the man as he left the cafe, keeping a safe distance. The man walked with a confident stride, his footsteps echoing in the deserted streets. He entered a nondescript building, a door marked only with a small brass number. Yusef memorized the address, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. The next day, Yusef returned to the building. He discovered it was a private club, frequented by the city's elite. He knew he couldn't simply walk in. He needed a plan. He used his connections in the perfumery business to gain a temporary membership, posing as a supplier of rare essential oils. Inside the club, the air was thick with the scent of expensive cigars, aged whiskey, and the lingering musk he had been following. He discreetly observed the patrons, searching for the man from the cafe. He found him in a secluded corner, engaged in a heated conversation with another man. Yusef moved closer, feigning interest in a nearby painting. He overheard snippets of their conversation, mentions of business deals, hidden accounts, and a woman named Fatima. His heart pounded in his chest. He was certain this man was connected to his wife's murder. He decided to confront him. He approached the man, introducing himself as a perfumer. The man looked at him with suspicion, his eyes narrowing. Yusef casually mentioned the musky scent he was wearing, commenting on its unusual composition. The man's face paled slightly, a flicker of fear in his eyes. Youssef pressed further, asking if he had known Fatima. The man denied it, his voice strained. But Youssef saw the lie in his eyes, the subtle shift in his demeanor. He knew he had struck a nerve. The man abruptly ended the conversation, excusing himself. Youssef watched him leave, a sense of frustration washing over him. He had gotten close, but he hadn't gotten the answers he needed. He decided to investigate the man further. He used his contacts to learn his identity. Karim Al-Fayed, a wealthy businessman with a reputation for ruthlessness. He discovered that Karim had been involved in several shady deals and that he had a history of exploiting vulnerable women. Youssef's suspicion grew. He was convinced that Karim was involved in Fatima's murder, but he needed proof. He needed to find a concrete link between Karim and his wife. He returned to the perfumery, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He revisited the storage room, the scene of the tragedy. He focused on the faint, musky scent, trying to isolate its individual components. He realized it was a complex blend, containing notes of sandalwood, amber, and a rare spice he couldn't quite identify. He spent days researching rare spices, consulting ancient texts, and contacting suppliers from around the world. Finally, he found it. A rare spice called desert bloom, found only in a remote region of the desert. It was incredibly expensive and difficult to obtain, used only in the most exclusive perfumes. He remembered Fatima mentioning a special order she had received for a custom perfume, a perfume containing desert bloom. She had been excited about the challenge, eager to create a unique and intoxicating scent. Youssef checked his records and found the order. It had been placed by Karim Al-Fayed. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. He realized that Fatima must have discovered something about Karim's business dealings while creating his perfume. Perhaps she had overheard a conversation, or perhaps she had stumbled upon some incriminating evidence. Karim must have realized that she knew too much, and he had silenced her. Youssef felt a surge of anger, a burning desire for revenge. But he knew he couldn't act rashly. He needed to gather more evidence, to build a solid case against Karim. He decided to visit Fatima's family, hoping they might have some information that could help him. He spoke with her sister, Nadia, who told him that Fatima had been acting strangely in the weeks leading up to her death. She had been secretive and withdrawn, as if she was carrying a heavy burden. Nadia also mentioned that Fatima had received several anonymous phone calls that had left her visibly shaken. Youssef realized that Fatima must have been threatened by Karim. He returned to the perfumery, feeling a sense of despair. He had uncovered the truth, but he didn't have enough evidence to bring Karim to justice. He needed something more, something concrete. He sat in his workshop, surrounded by the familiar scents of his trade. He closed his eyes, trying to clear his mind. He focused on the scent of desert bloom, trying to understand its unique properties. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He remembered reading about a rare technique used by ancient perfumers, a technique that could imprint scents onto objects. He wondered if he could use this technique to find evidence against Karim. He began experimenting, using his knowledge of scent and his skills as a perfumer. He worked tirelessly, trying to recreate the scent of desert bloom and imprint it onto a piece of fabric. After days of experimentation, he finally succeeded. He had created a small piece of fabric that carried the distinct scent of desert bloom, a scent that only he and Fatima would recognize. He knew what he had to do. He had to confront Karim, and he had to use this scent to expose his guilt. The scent of revenge now mingled with the scent of loss, fueling his determination. Youssef knew the confrontation with Karim Al-Fayed would be dangerous. He had to be careful, strategic. He couldn't simply accuse him without irrefutable proof. The imprinted fabric carrying the distinct scent of desert bloom was his key. It was a silent witness, a fragrant testament to Karim's involvement in Fatima's murder. He decided to arrange a meeting with Karim under the guise of discussing a new perfume commission. He contacted Karim's office using his fabricated identity as a supplier of rare essential oils. Karim, intrigued by the prospect of acquiring unique ingredients, agreed to meet. The meeting was set for Karim's opulent office, a space decorated with expensive artwork and luxurious furnishings. Youssef arrived punctually, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. He carried the small piece of fabric, carefully concealed in his pocket. Karim greeted him with a forced smile, his eyes cold and calculating. He offered Youssef a seat, then began to inquire about the rare essential oils. Youssef played along, discussing the nuances of various scents, subtly steering the conversation towards Fatima and her work. He mentioned the custom perfume Fatima had created for Karim, mentioning the rare desert bloom spice. Karim's eyes flickered for a moment, a barely perceptible change in his demeanor. Youssef knew he was getting closer. He then casually pulled out the piece of fabric from his pocket, holding it up as if to demonstrate the texture. "This fabric," he said, his voice steady, "has been treated with a special technique, imbuing it with a long-lasting scent." He brought the fabric closer to Karim's face. "Do you recognize this scent?" Karim inhaled cautiously. His eyes widened slightly as the familiar scent of desert bloom reached his nostrils. He recoiled, his face paling. He knew he had been exposed. Youssef pressed his advantage. "This scent," he said, his voice now firm, "was present in the storage room where my wife was murdered. It's a rare scent, one that only you and she had access to." Karim's composure crumbled. He stammered, trying to deny any involvement, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. Youssef continued, recounting the evidence he had gathered, the anonymous phone calls, Fatima's secretive behavior, the connection between Karim's business dealings and her death. Karim finally broke down, confessing to his crime. He admitted that Fatima had stumbled upon evidence of his illegal activities and that he had silenced her to protect himself. He had locked the door from the inside to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Youssef felt a wave of relief wash over him. The truth was finally out. Fatima's killer had been exposed, but the relief was mingled with a deep sadness, a profound sense of loss. Nothing could bring Fatima back. He contacted Inspector Kamal, providing him with the evidence he had gathered, including Karim's confession. The police swiftly arrested Karim, bringing him to justice for his crime. The city's news outlets buzzed with the story of the perfumer who solved his wife's murder using his extraordinary sense of smell. Youssef became an unlikely hero, but his victory felt hollow. He had achieved justice for Fatima, but the pain of her absence remained. In the days that followed, Youssef tried to rebuild his life. He returned to the perfumery, the space that held so many memories, both joyful and painful. The scent of disinfectant had faded, replaced by the familiar aromas of his trade. He found solace in his work, creating new perfumes, each one a tribute to Fatima's memory. He poured his grief, his love, and his memories into his creations, transforming his pain into art. One day, while sorting through Fatima's belongings, he found a small, leather-bound notebook. It was her journal, filled with her thoughts, her dreams, and her reflections on life and love. He opened the journal and began to read. He discovered a side of Fatima he had never known, her innermost thoughts and feelings. He learned about her deep love for him, her fears, and her hopes for the future. In one entry, Fatima wrote about the custom perfume she was creating for Karim, the one containing desert bloom. She described the scent as intoxicating and dangerous, a reflection of the man himself. She also wrote about a strange feeling she had, a sense of unease, as if she was being watched. Youssef realized that Fatima had sensed the danger, that she had known something was wrong. He felt a pang of guilt, wishing he had been there to protect her. He closed the journal, holding it close to his heart. He knew that Fatima would always be a part of him, her memory forever etched in his heart, her scent forever lingering in his soul. He continued his work as a perfumer, honoring Fatima's memory with each new creation. He found a way to transform his grief into something beautiful, something meaningful. He learned that even in the darkest of times, love and memory can endure, like a lingering fragrance that never truly fades. He continued to create perfumes, each one a story, each one a memory, each one a testament to the enduring power of love. The perfumery became a place of remembrance, a sanctuary where the scent of Fatima's love lingered, a constant reminder of the beautiful tapestry they had woven together, a tapestry that, though torn, could never be completely unraveled. And so, the tale of the perfumer and the scent of justice comes to a close. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more captivating stories. Stay tuned.